Welcome to Pretty Lies and Alibis. Join us as we seek the truth and travel the long road to justice. Hey, everybody, Alibiers. Hey, Alibiers. Welcome to another episode of Pretty Lies and Alibis. I'm Gigi Fruit Loop. What you know?
Okay, so our Australian listeners are going to like this one. And I looked up the pronunciation so I'd get it right. So the lyrebird can mimic almost any sound it hears, including chainsaws. So it's an Australian species that copies not only birds but other animals like koalas, artificial sounds such as car alarms and camera shutters.
That's really cool.
I want one of those birds.
No kidding. The only problem is off the podcast, I have a bit of a potty mouth, so that might not be good if they're
Really
mimicking
bad.
stuff. That's why I never got a parrot or a parakeet or whatever.
Hey, when I was a kid, I just lost my train of thought. What is it called? Oh my goodness. The pet store. I cannot think.
Oh my gosh,
Man.
girl.
Woo. The pet store, they had a cockatiel. It was a big cockatiel that had lived with an older lady.
Mm-hmm.
And it was bad. They finally had to get rid of it because it cussed so much.
That'd be my bird.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm trying to get better, but, you've been around me long enough to know. It's just, I think it's hopeless.
I just want to be that bird that can like make any kind of sound. Like you can mimic a chainsaw.
You remember that dude on Police Academy that could do all the voices?
Yes.
He was so cool. What was his name? I don't know.
Think
But
what his name was, but it was
yeah,
cool.
well, we want to give a quick shout out to one of our amazing sponsors, Too Cool T-Shirt Quilts. You can go to twocooltshirtquilts.com/pretty lies and alibis. I'm going to get her to do my uncle a t-shirt quilt for my aunt.
I have my box sitting right there.
Oh, is it still sitting right there?
It is. I just got bogged down before surgery and didn't get it sent. And
it's chaotic before surgery. How are you feeling, by the way?
I'm all right. I overdid a little bit yesterday, so
yeah, you're gonna have those days. Well, I'm just glad we're back.
Yeah,
the universe feels right again.
Yep.
So we're gonna do this tomorrow. I had one ready for Josh Duggar just to catch up on everything, but his sentencing isn't until the 25th. So we're a little behind on this defense filing with Lori Vallow's attorneys responding. So we wanted to do this just a heads up. The next hearing is Thursday for her. I assume it will be live streamed. So
I'll get to watch this time. I ain't gonna be under the knife.
I know you of all times for you to be under anesthesia when she's finally arraigned on all these charges, you are just out to lunch.
Yep.
So, anyways, this defense filing is a response to the state's motion to continue the trial. And we discussed, or I did, because you were out, previously how the prosecution filed to join Lori and Chad's trial in January, although she didn't waive her right to she did not waive her right to a speedy trial. But it gets confusing because she also says she wants to be tried with Chad. So it's kind of like she's straddling the fence right now. I can't really figure out what they're getting at.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the advantage would be to delay doing that. I don't know. Do you have like a certain amount of time before you have to make that decision? I don't know.
I don't know about the decision, but I mean, the deadline for the 6 months ironically fell on the 2-year anniversary of or 3-year anniversary of when Tammy Daybell was murdered. But they actually, set it for it's not on that date when it starts. But I don't think they're going to be ready in October. And I'm not convinced she's not going to end back up incompetent because that's sort of what this filing to me insinuates.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's go through it. So we're just going to walk through this filing. Lori has been incarcerated and hospitalized for over 2 years since her arrest on February 20th, 2020. She has reviewed with counsel the court's decision regarding the joining of her case with her husband, Chad Daybell, for purposes of a jury trial. She has reviewed the order denying severance, and she has instructed her attorneys to not file a request for a separate trial. When I was in Vegas, somebody told me that she absolutely wants to be right in there with him.
Yeah, they probably think they're going to be able to conjure up a portal or something.
Right. Yeah, meet me under the table. We're going to skip this place.
Yeah.
So she had previously hired private counsel when arrested in 2020, but was declared indigent prior to her hospitalization in 2021. The trial court couldn't authorize the spending of public funds for a defense team until she was arraigned. A fully funded defense team at public expense was approved at her arraignment on April 19th, 2022. Other experts may be hired for the defense as the need arises. Yeah, you totally saw that I misspelled that and put fired.
No, I was like, uh-oh.
Other
They
experts
gonna
may
be
be fired
fired.
for the defense.
You fired. Yeah.
She has met several times with her defense team, consisting of lead counsel, co-counsel, a mitigation specialist, and an investigator. So now we see her defense team has grown from one, being Mark Means, to four now, and I fully expected the mitigation specialist. This just is a death penalty case at this point, so we're gonna talk about what a mitigation specialist does. So this episode, once we get done, we're gonna run through what a neuropsychologist does, which is mentioned in here, and then mitigation and also malingering. I found some really cool medical articles that were sort of hard to decipher, but anyways. She understands the defense is spending a considerable amount of time devoted to going through the mountains of discovery to get ready for trial, and that the defense is in the process of identifying and interviewing witnesses for the trial and potential sentencing if there is a conviction, and understands the scrutiny in a potential death penalty case.
So, like we said, Lori's mental health is extremely complex and fragile, and she has the potential to be hospitalized again in the near future. None of the experts employed by the court and the state of Idaho Department of Health and Welfare claim she is malingering or making up her mental illness. She understands she will undergo further mental health testing as a neuropsychologist approved for the defense team will be meeting with her next month. She understands her right to a speedy trial and does not want to waive that right, which was what we talked about. If the court moves her trial from October 11th, 2022 to January 9th, 2023, she understands that will give her defense team more time to get ready. Scott Reich thinks this could be risky for the prosecution to ask to move her trial to January because it can be an appellate issue down the road and she could walk.
Can I just say a quick hello to Miss Janine from Rexburg, because she just texted me the sweetest message, and I adore her. And I got to meet her in Vegas, and she is precious. So, hey, Miss Janine. Okay, sorry.
No, you good. What is a mitigation specialist? Their specialists, their jobs are to get their client anything but death. Essentially, they will investigate Lori's background, such as family history, medical history. Well, I mean, that's not good. Like,
can of worms right there.
Medical history, education and employment history, abuse suffered, etc. They will try to humanize Lori to the jury and sometimes give context for her behavior. I'm sorry, but the lives you took, I don't care what you went through, they didn't deserve to be taken like they were taken. I mean, they didn't deserve to be taken, period, but...
Yeah, and I mean, look, we could sit here and talk all night long about how a lot of people in this world had really terrible upbringings and horrible childhoods and did not let that dictate their adult life. Now, I know sometimes with mental illness, and I'm not talking about Lori specifically, there are many complex issues and traumas that people have had in their childhood. But statistically, if you look at it, most people who had really bad childhoods don't murder. Yeah. One person, much less 4, potentially 5. So, it's, I don't understand why, if I don't know, it just bugs me. It's not an excuse. The bottom line is, and I've decided, like, on here not to really give my opinion anymore about whether I think she's faking or not, because I'm not a doctor.
Yeah.
But, here's the thing. When you hide what you did, what you did was wrong.
Yep.
At the end of the day, whether she's got mental illness or not, she hid what she did. You parade when you think you did nothing wrong. So, it really irks me. But then a good mitigation specialist, look at Jodi Arias. It was 11-1. One person was convinced by that mitigation specialist that she in some ways had a terrible history and spared her life.
Yeah. No, I don't.
And
There's
that's their
never an
job.
excuse to take somebody's life. Never.
Zero,
Yeah.
none. And I mean,
Yeah.
like Larry always says, what was it for? I mean,
Yeah.
really?
Like, look where you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. So juries will use their own judgment in comparing the aggravating factors the prosecution presents and weigh that against the mitigating factors to decide which one outweighs the other. The Capital Jury Project has interviewed thousands of jurors from capital trials. They were asked about their thoughts and experiences. Jurors overwhelmingly said that mitigating factors didn't excuse the crime and shouldn't be considered at sentencing. I
Yeah.
totally agree.
Yeah. So, um, in this, they talk about, her going to see a neuropsychologist next month. And so I found a lot of medical journals online this weekend. And so this is from the lawyer and the neuropsychologist managing the process and each other. So what do they do? So essentially, they will gather a lot of Lori's records, including but not limited to medical records, prior psychological or neuropsychological testing.
Which we know she had several times.
Right, and she bragged that she passed with flying colors, I think on camera,
Yeah.
so we got that going for us. School records, camp records, results of standardized tests, employment records and job applications,
Dude,
disabil
dude, do you mean our standardized tests are still on record?
Girl, Imma tell you, if they get the math portion, we are screwed. If
I
we
think
ever
I made designs out of the math portion.
I did like Christmas tree.
Yeah, like everything C. Yeah.
I know. My poor kids, anytime they need math homework, they know. Like, don't
Mhm.
call me, don't even ask me because it's gonna be, is it adding, subtracting? Can't
Yeah.
help you.
No.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, math stinks. Me and Fruit Loop.
Mhm.
If you're new to the podcast, we really stink at math, and we were in the worst math class together, like the
Yeah.
most basic math class, and we still were on the struggle bus, y'all.
Yep.
So any competent look, you done wore off on me with a tongue tie. Any competency proceedings taken against your client. In addition, the neuropsychologist should be given all relevant discovery in the case, such as your client's deposition, before and after witness depositions, which are usually like your family members and friends, treating physician depositions, and responses regarding damage issues. So the defense expert uses the most recent version of this test called the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. It's called DSM is the acronym in making a diagnostic assessment.
I'm
They
gonna tell
can't
you, I've tried to diagnose myself in that thing.
have you
I have one in here on my shelf somewhere.
are you serious?
Oh yeah.
Oh, you can
Yeah,
take it online. It's a lot quicker.
you'll flip through that book and be like, "Oh my gosh, I've got 10 different things in this book."
Oh, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sure. So
Yeah.
audio I did do an ADHD one, and I think I've got it figured out why my brain's like synapses are always firing.
Yeah.
So audio taping the examination is permissible, but no attorney or third parties are allowed to be present. So,
Okay, here's my question on this. Like, we see what all they're going to take
mhm.
and what their job is gonna be for the mitigation, if I'm understanding it right. They're going to try to convince the jury that stuff that she had happen in her prior to now life caused her to be this way.
Essentially, yeah. Anything to elicit sympathy from one juror, all it takes is one.
Yeah.
So yeah, and the thing too is though, one thing I did notice with a neuropsychologist, a lot of times they deal with people that have had head injuries. So I'm just curious if this near death experience that she said she had is going to come into play. I don't know if we've ever heard if she actually sought treatment for that. But remember, didn't she say she had a near death experience or something in Hawaii? Or was that Chad?
Chad had one. That's when he got hit by that wave or fell off a cliff or something. I don't remember. I read the book, remember?
I do remember.
Yeah, yeah, I read the book. It's something he fell off. He was jumping off something and
But I thought Lori
his
had something too. I don't know. I'll have to look it up. I get, there's so much stuff in this case. It's
But
like,
here's my deal. Here's my deal. Kay herself said that Lori was normal for her.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like,
right. At the time. I
so
think a lot, you see now when you get these custody battle papers with Joe Ryan, you see really how good she was at being kind of like a shapeshifter.
Oh yeah.
based on where she was. But
Chameleon.
yeah, karma chameleon.
Right.
So, but we don't know if this neuropsychologist test that's happening next month is going to be for competency or for mitigating factors. So
Hmm.
we aren't sure yet. Um, so you pick up, yeah.
So, what does a forensic neuropsychologist do? What's funny is you call it neuropsychology, and for me, psychology is all about the brain. So, isn't that neuro? But anyways, it's okay. I guess if you go to school that long, you need like a label that big.
I
So,
keep getting worried I'm gonna get tongue tied saying it.
yeah, neuropsychologist. Do compare it to a forensic psychologist. A forensic psychologist focuses on evaluating human behavior and traditional psychiatric diagnosis. The forensic neuropsychologist goes further in examining brain behavior, relationships, and neuropsychological functional testing related to both psychiatric and neurological disorders. And that was written by Matthew Fabian.
Yeah.
The assessments evaluate how brain disorders produce psychological symptoms, such as, but not limited to, mood disorders, psychosis, and personality disorders.
That
Uh,
paragraph was a mouthful.
for real, for real. Uh, it is used in the court system to help with mitigation, sanity, and mental fitness. They may utilize MRIs and other medical tests to look for structural abnormalities and things like that to support their position. Um, Neuropsychological testing is to help decide whether any cognitive factors would influence criminal responsibility. No, they just had these crazy beliefs.
Right, yeah.
They
Yeah.
ain't crazy. They just had crazy beliefs.
Definitely religious delusions. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
once we got those text messages, for
Oh my
me, it's not an
goodness.
excuse, but she believed this stuff
Oh, yeah, most
and
definitely.
apparently still does.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. So they don't determine if the person has a cognitive problem. They determine how the cognitive problem affects the legal issue the defendant is dealing with. Their main role is to determine the dysfunction of a person, establish how a dysfunction affects their daily lives, provide their expert opinion on what kind of prognosis this deficiency might lead to, establish a relationship between the crime and the dysfunction. Neuropsychology in the criminal field typically involves evaluations through collateral interviewing, clinical interviewing, and the review of comprehensive records. There goes some standardized test again. Guys, we in trouble.
no.
Neuropsychologists are leaders in the field of malingering detection. So, on the basis of neuropsychological assessment, it is possible to obtain insight into the relation between brain disorders and criminal behavior. In a study published in 2010 from the clinical psychology publication, they found that defendants charged with killing two or more people had a higher rate of personality disorders. 79% did, compared to 50. What is that? 54% of those who killed one person, and a low rate of developmental disorders. 34% did, compared to 49% of those who killed one.
Mhm. So, in another study, they took a sample of 31 murderers. 20 had at least one neurological disorder. Examples are epilepsy, traumatic brain injury, fetal alcohol syndrome, and others. In the end, they found that out of the 31, all 27 who did the neuropsychological evaluation, every one of them had cognitive abnormalities. And a history of head trauma and traumatic brain injury has been linked to violent aggression and criminal acts, with TBI numbers being found higher among violent offenders than just in the general population. So it's interesting stuff. I love psychology. Like, I think we both got A's in that in high school. Mainly
I
because we
just
were the
got
teacher's
A's.
pet.
I just got A's because Miss Reed liked me.
I know, because we were the teacher's pets.
Yes.
So malingering, and I think this is really interesting, and I learned a lot going through these medical journals and kind of reading what I could understand. So, in one study of 879 participants, 17.5% of those found incompetent to stand trial, that they were committed to a state hospital rather than going to jail, were later identified to be faking their symptoms.
Wow.
This study also found malingering was higher among people who were malingering while being evaluated for competency. That was 17.5% compared to inmates seeking psychiatric services, which usually the big draw there is medications are high on the list why you malinger once you're in prison, or also seeking alternative placement in a hospital. That was 64.5% of people found to be malingering. They also found more malingering the more serious the charge, obviously.
Oh yeah. You trying
And
to avoid going to the clink.
heck yeah. The estimates of malingering are as high as $5 billion every year. So, and I asked my contact in prison about malingering and if it's something that she sees frequently. She does see it in the prison population at a very high rate for those reasons before medications to get a little bit of a high sometimes, and also to try to get placement at a hospital because it's a lot easier in some
Look,
respects. I've heard both. I've heard it's better in prison, and then some states is.
yeah.
Did you have a thought?
Well, my thought was like out in left field, but
Oh,
no. I'd
but
act like I was
what's
crazy.
new?
Look, I'd act like I was crazy.
Yeah, I mean,
I'd be talking to people. I'd do the whole thing.
but it's really interesting because the number of people that actually get away with malingering is super low.
Yeah.
I mean, Lori could be that exception, but statistically, if she's malingering, she doesn't have a very high chance of it going a very long time, according
No.
to these numbers.
Yeah.
So, from an article in Psychology Today, it says the problem criminal malingerers face is in faking bad. They don't know how far to take the act. So, consequently, they typically overplay their hand. And if by luck they score within the range that is typical for mentally impaired individuals on one test, then they will score well outside this range on other tests. So here's an example using one patient. He tested so badly on memory skills and cognitive abilities that even profoundly impaired individuals would have achieved better scores. These highly improbable scores did not align with observations that he was able to read, work in the garden, interact normally with staff and other patients. That makes so much sense.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Dude, we used to fake trying to be sick to not go to school.
Look, I literally thought about that when I was doing this research, and they talk in a minute about just getting comfortable or getting tired and you forget your symptoms. It reminds me of my kids, at 7 in the morning, they got belly aches, can't hardly move. And then by
Yep.
10, they're fine and want to play their Xbox all day. They
Oh,
kind
they
of
cutting
forget
cartwheels.
they're
Yeah.
in the clear, they're home, they are not in school.
It's
So,
Ferris Bueller.
right. Yeah,
Exactly. He
that would
put
be my
the
son.
he put soap under his arm to make his temperature go up or something. I always try that. It never worked. I don't
I
know.
always try to penny under my tongue, but I just had a bad taste in my mouth the rest of the day. It never worked. My mom was like, "You're fine. Get
Eh,
up."
no, the one time, I put the thermometer under the light bulb.
Oh,
It
yeah.
was bad. It was like 200 degrees.
Yeah,
I was like, "Oh,
110,
no."
call EMS.
Yeah. You're
That's funny.
done. Yeah. So, from applied psychology and criminal justice in 2006, there are levels of malingering. Exaggerating genuine symptoms to give the impression of a more severe mental illness, using deception with genuine symptoms, tying them back to the time of the crimes to reduce culpability, total fabrication of symptoms to achieve incentives. When someone is committed to the hospital, it is very difficult for even the best to successfully malinger due to the constant supervision by mental health professionals. And we know they do this all the time. Like
Mhm.
they see everybody. Um, Maintaining a constant symptom pattern is almost impossible, but a small few do. In some cases where a defendant was proven to be malingering, additional charges were added for obstruction of justice. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Very much so. So, for example, doctors treating someone who is suspected of malingering will use collateral information such as contact with family and friends during hospitalization to see if the malingering symptoms subside when talking to others outside of the hospital setting. They will also use scientifically based testing and methods to detect someone malingering. There are other signs they watch for, such as true mental health impairments. Uh, they're not sudden onset based on who you're talking to, they're always there. A red flag is when the patient is eager to always talk about their condition with their treatment team. Most times, someone with true mental illness does not consistently bring up or try to call attention to their diagnosis or prove it, which is a good point there, too.
Hmm.
Body language can be deciphered as well. For example, on days where the therapy is hours long, malingerers will often act less symptomatic with fatigue. They will often schedule lengthy and multiple interviews when malingering is suspected. Malingerers tend, that's a funny word, malingerers, tend to mix symptoms from various mental illnesses in their attempts, thinking the more symptoms, the worse their case. See, we did that as a kid. Mom, my head hurts, my eye hurts, my arm hurts. Yeah.
Right.
They also exaggerate their symptoms to the point where even in the most severe cases of true mental illness, there are very few symptoms that are consistently extreme. When an inmate does not have medical knowledge of what symptoms are typical with a mental illness they're trying to copy, they lump other symptoms in, and this can be a red flag for
So,
professionals.
it makes a lot of sense as to how it really would be super hard to keep that act up 24/7 and know when it's
Mhm.
appropriate to not malinger so much. But, I have confidence that if she's malingering, they will figure it out. I
Yeah,
mean, now I'm
yeah.
sure that the prosecution is going to get their own psychologist to evaluate her, and then you're gonna have different opinions. I'm just curious to see what this is for. Um,
Talk to me. Ain't nothing wrong, let's go. Get in
sometimes
the game.
yeah, right. Um, sometimes the report of symptoms by the patients does not match with their actual behavior, and ultimately, it's a combination of observations from behavior, assessments, and symptom reporting, among other things that go into making a determination of whether someone is malingering. One of the big tests that they use is called the SIRS-2 test, which stands for Structured Interview of Reported Symptom, and that's considered in the mental health field to be one of the best assessments for detecting malingering. The consistency or inconsistency in responses can reveal to professionals the likelihood that someone is malingering. And what's really cool about this test, and I looked at some sample questions, it's one of those things where they ask you three questions very differently, but they all mean the same thing. So
Mhm.
if somebody's malingering, they're going to have three different answers that don't match. And then so you can see how malingering for months or years is really, really hard to do.
Oh, yeah.
And then if you remember, the number of people that actually need to be hospitalized for that extension was what, 1%? It was super, super low.
Mm.
So, if
Yeah,
she's malingering, I think they will figure it out.
yeah. It's like telling a lie and having to tell 10 other lies to cover up your one lie.
Exactly.
Eventually, you forget what you said, and then you gonna find out, "Oh, wait, that wasn't what," you know?
But,
That's
she
yeah.
she probably had access just like she does in jail to, like, the emails. They
Mhm,
all of that is at their disposal to go back to what we were saying, which is they check communication with everybody. They
mhm.
probably have cameras in her room. You know
Oh,
what I'm
yeah,
saying? So,
yeah,
anyways,
most
I
definitely.
just wanna know what this is for. I guess we'll find out soon enough. I'm honestly, like, ready for this show to get on the road. It's been a long time. The families need closure. But I'm not gonna be surprised if she ends up back in just because that's kind of where we've been.
Yep.
Can I just say our proportions are off? You're close to the camera and I'm far away,
I
and,
know, I'm
like,
like, "Here, let me
I
move
look
it.
I
Let me
look
move it."
like I'm
That's about right.
there we go. Yeah, I need to scoot up.
But I got bad posture if I sit back.
Oh, I have terrible posture. I'm like a
Yeah,
humpback.
yeah,
So, anyways, that's all for today. It was just really, really fun to read up on this stuff. It's fascinating to me, and it gives a little bit more insight into, um, if she is malingering, what she's having to do it.
yeah,
So,
yep.
anyways, tomorrow we're going to update on Josh Duggar. We've got every letter written on Josh's behalf to the judge to consider it sentencing. We won't read them all, but we're going to summarize them. A couple of family members have spoken out, especially after the mom, Michelle, made this really sappy. He's a good
Yeah,
kid. She signed her name with a heart on the
in the
eye.
eye, I saw that. I
I
was
did
like,
that in sixth grade.
"Yeah,
These
yeah."
people are not
Hey,
all of them. Some of the kids have, like, gotten out and thinking for themselves and, got shunned from the family for, like, wearing blue jeans, but
yeah.
Whatever.
Hey,
So,
you know you're from the South when you drink from a mason jar.
dude, I got like 50 mason jars. My son's name
Mhm,
is Mason. That's what
mhm.
my uncle, my Aunt Angie, her husband, he's always called my son Mason Jar.
Yeah, it's straight up water, guys. Straight up water.
Nah, that's the shine, girl. You got some white lightning up in there.
Water. I guarantee you, my face would not look this. I've seen people drink that. It wouldn't look like this if I
Look,
drank that stuff.
aside from the Zima incident in high school where I drank a 6-pack and made you stay up to make sure I didn't like aspirate vomit on myself, one
Yeah.
time my parents were out of town at the beach and I got into my dad's white lightning and I chugged it like it was sweet tea. And I
Mm-mm.
thought my esophagus was going to close up on me. It
Yeah.
was like a
No.
200 proof.
Nope.
I can't handle the
Good.
alcohol.
You
I'm
can
too
leave
old.
all that at the house.
I tell you, I'm too old to
straight
drink.
water.
I can't handle the hangover. It's just like, well, I don't want to do that and feel bad for a day and a half.
Ain't worth it.
Back when you were a kid, like you throw up, keep going, now it's like, no, I'm good. All right, guys, we would sit here and chew the fat all night, but we
Yeah.
better go. So y'all have a good evening and we will see you back tomorrow. It just feels so good to be back together.
Australian people, don't forget about that lyrebird.
Go get you one of them birds.
Go get it. Y'all gonna comment. I want to see your comments.
Yes.
Somebody done seen one or heard one, I know.
Yeah. All right, guys, we will see you tomorrow.